flooring. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of the different systems that we have for solid timber flooring. As you're well aware, we've got so many different applications of hardwood flooring. We've got our solid flooring, we've got traditional 19mm thick. We've got thinner boards, 14mm, even down as low as 10mm now. We've got engineered flooring, we've got bamboo, we've got laminate, all those types of things that all have varied applications. We just want to give you a quick overview of what we do with our solid timbers at the moment. So, a few scenarios. We'll start with concrete. The concrete slab, varied applications that we can use. We can go direct to the concrete, we can use plywood over the concrete and then fix the flooring to that, or we can use a timber batten over the concrete, and a couple of different thicknesses of battens which we can show and different reasons why. Firstly, we'll start with the direct to concrete Tasmanian oak. Tasmanian oak is one of the few species that we will do direct to concrete. The reason it's specifically produced differently than nearly any other hardwood in Australia, and that is it's slab dried, so it's all quarter sawn, slab dried. That process, without going into too much details, guarantees us a perfectly flat, straight piece of wood, and that's fairly unheard of with any pieces of wood. So what it does do though is it enables us to use the adhesives. We know the adhesives will hold the floor down, but just simply getting the board to stay in the glue while the glue's drying is a difficulty that we have. We don't want to then go through and be barbaric and put nails right through your floor or use things like that. So you start off with a great bit of wood, gives your system a far better outcome. The Tasmanian oak, as I say, is the limit that we have. We get a little bit of southern blue gum as well, and we do now do it in a 108 wide board. The blue gum or the southern oak is very hard for us to get hold of, so it is these limited supplies. So this is how we do it here. This system here, we just simply lay the boards into the adhesive over the concrete slab. What we do have to do, of course, is to do a complete site assessment to make sure of suitability for that product to go to concrete. So we check all the moisture contents and all the other variables that can come into play, minimise the risk of the job, make sure we assess the risk and we've dealt with it all. If everything's satisfactory, we then put our adhesive down onto the concrete. A lot of the manufacturer's recommendations are for a 3mm V-notch trowel. As you can see with this, we work with the Seeker product. It's a very great adhesive. We've been using it now for near on 15 years. We formulated our own spread patterns, our own trowels where we get it out onto the floor. And you can see here that the beads of adhesive sit up very high. We've got them a long way apart, so we're getting a large volume of glue onto the ground. What that enables us to do is to combat any little undulations, minor unevenness that's in the slab. And because we're using 19mm thick timber and not a thinner product, we don't necessarily have to follow every contour of the slab. We can now use the adhesive to bridge out those minor variables. We know that the timber has the integrity. It's designed to span a 450 floor joist, so pretty well with nothing underneath it. So if we've got a slight undulation and we fill it up with the adhesive, it works very, very well. So the adhesive goes down, timber lays in it. If we do use a nail, we use the odd pin just to hold the board, just so there's no tension with it coming in and out until the glue dries, and we pull those nails out. We're left with a tiny little hole, which nobody knows it or notices it by the time it's filled with the floor sanded and polished. The second system is plywood. So the plywood then goes over top of the concrete slab. We can see maybe on this system here, we'll cut down to this one here where we've got the black plastic. We do the same under the plywood. So we put the black plastic down, plywood down, and then we fix to that plywood. The plywood's held down by masonry anchors. We don't just shoot the floor down with an explosive tool. We physically drill, use a 6mm spike, where we push that into the floor, hammer it into the floor, and that holds the plywood very, very well. The reason we need to do that is if timber does move, it puts a lot of pressure, a lot of force onto the subfloor, so the subfloor has to be fixed very well to be able to combat any of that expansion, any movement where it might want to pull up along the area, so that base is held so the floor can be held well. We then, over the plywood, we put a bead of adhesive. Somewhere the rule book tells us about every 400 mil. We try to get down around every 150 to 200 millimetres where we're putting a large bead of adhesive down onto the floor, making sure that it's going right across the whole width of the board, not just on the back of the board, but make sure it's getting the outer perimeter of the board, every board, so it's held down properly. Then we secret fix. Again, the rule book says maximum of, or minimum of 450 centres. We try to get those very close as well, down around that 300 millimetres. That secret fix goes into every joint of the board. That system holds very, very well. Similar applications if we're doing an overlay of another floor. With the battens over the concrete, we'll go down to this system here. Again, we've got our concrete, we've got our plastic, we've got our batten. Again, it's drilled and spiked down to hold very well. This is a system that just has a 19mm batten. The reason we can get away with a 19mm is we're secret fixing to the batten with the adhesive. Why would we use this system? Sometimes people like that traditional look, or the traditional sound, just get a little bit noisier underfoot, a little bit of that traditional timber sound, and it's a little bit cheaper to use. So it can become a cost-effective system also. The other time that we would use a batten, if we go over here to this system, we've got a lot higher batten, it's a 35mm. The reason we would use a 35mm system is if we're using a wider floorboard, something like a 130 or even up to a 180 wide floorboard. Some of those systems we need to top nail. So the simplicity of the system is the fixing needs to be minimum 50mm long, so you need something that's going to accommodate that 50mm nail and also by the time it's punched in. So if you're going to top fix a floor, a wide board, we must use this type of application. We said traditionally down here, some people like that little bit of noise. You get that little bit of noise, solid system, you get a lot less when it's a full ply. The other time this can work very well if you have the height to accommodate the system, is we can put insulation in underneath these bats. Makes a great system, it takes all the sound out of it, and still it's a very cost-effective system to put down over concrete, and then you get the luxury of having the application of the wide board if that's a type of look that you're after. Down here finally, we've got a system where we've got acoustic matting going over the concrete. That acoustic matting's glued to the concrete, the timber's glued to the matting. The other variable that we can have to this is glue a plywood to the matting, then the timber to that. Every time we do something like that, it increases that sound transfer rating, which means there's less noise that transfers through the floor. In any system like this, you can't have any fixing through the timber, through the plywood, through the matting, even through a skirting board that's touching the floor. Anything that's going into the concrete will transfer that noise right through. So the system needs to be isolated from anything else around it that it can touch it and transfer down through that concrete. So thank you, that's just a brief overview of the type of systems. We will be doing further videos on different applications, more specific, a lot more of the detail of each one of these applications. So I look forward to talking to you further about those in the future. Thank you.